All right. No, we won't pause this time.
Three, two, one.
So before we get started, Mr. Chuck, would you like to tell us anything about yourself? No,
Wait,
I don't know.
stop laughing.
Yeah, just ask me if how I got into mycology.
All right, all right. So, Mr. Chuck, how did you get into mycology?
Well, it was back when COVID started. So early 2019, um, I was working for a software company, and I think within the first few months of COVID, they sent everybody home, and everybody's going to work remotely. Nobody's going to be in the office, and they decided that to kind of ease some of the strain of COVID and being remote, they were going to offer $100 a month stipend for anything that we want. So if the employees wanted to use it for groceries or for a part for a bicycle or for whatever, all we had to do is submit receipts, and they would reimburse $100 a month. And a lot of people got into like making sourdough at my company, and I went and got interested in mushrooms. And first got interested for mental health stuff, and through that stipend, I kind of built out my lab that I've got going here. It didn't cover everything, but it covered a lot. So it got me a lot of equipment and things to work with, and purchasing a bunch of mushroom genetics, and then I was off to the races, and just it kind of like took over a lot of different areas of my life, like writing the Cosmic Award for Scouts. I even submitted a merit badge proposal to BSA National, and then written a children's book that's like in the final stages of finishing illustration, and it's a book about mushrooms. It's called Jerome the Little Brown Mushroom. So hopefully that'll be out before the end of the year.
Yeah, I will be a customer for sure. Um, but just to get started, do you want to start?
Sure. So, what exactly are fungi, and how has our understanding of them grown from their early discovery to mycology today?
So fungi is actually its own kingdom. So there's the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, and then also the fungi kingdom. So how our understanding has changed over the years. We used to study mycology under the umbrella of botany. They were thought of to be just plants because they had somewhat similar of a root system. They don't move. So we thought they were plants for the longest time. But that's changed, and they're now their own kingdom. So that's mushrooms like the fruiting buddies that you would normally see or that you can buy in the grocery store, but it's also yeasts and molds and bacteria and lichen are a part of the kingdom of fungi.
Okay, and I know you just sort of covered this, but like for a bit of a more broad overview, what are the main types of fungi?
So that's it. That it would be the yeast, the bacteria, the mycelium, or the ones that form actual fruiting bodies.
Okay.
So, there's parts that are edible, there's parts that come into like beverage and like
Hmm.
bread making. So without yeast, you wouldn't have leavened bread, it wouldn't be rising like it does. You wouldn't have beer and wine. And there's, plenty of others that are out there that are edible or medicinal.
I see. Okay. So, what are some examples of fungi that survive in like extreme environments?
So the mushroom, like what we would consider like a plant seed, is is a spore. And spores have been shown to survive the vacuum of space. But there's also like research that have found mushrooms in really arid conditions where mushrooms are like 90% water, so they need a lot of moisture. But there's some that have been found to grow like in the sand on beaches. There's some mycelium that's been found in like inside encased in rocks, like down in the ocean floor kind of thing. So those aren't as well known as what we found on Earth. But again, like I know we had talked earlier about how how much we know about mushrooms and mushroom kingdom in general. There's
Right.
estimated to be like 1.5 to 3.5 million different mushrooms out there, and we know about 250,000 of them. So we actually know more about the ocean floor. We've got it mapped out about 90%. we know like 1 to 3% of the mushroom species.
And if you know, are these mushrooms, have they evolved over time to survive in like the desert or in extremely cold environments, or is it just they were kind of created like that?
I think there's some evidence to show there's an evolution there.
Okay.
And one of the ways that's kind of expressed in the mushroom kingdom is like the number of spores that each like mushroom fruiting body can give off in its short lifetime. It's in the billions. So like there, from an evolutionary standpoint of keeping your genetic material alive, like further in life,
Yeah.
mushrooms have evolved to the point where they know it's a numbers game. That they're out in nature, there's competitors for the same food resources.
Mhm.
So that's one of the ways that mushrooms have been um, so prolific
Okay.
is
Okay.
they kind of, and that just speaks to the nature of things. That it's all about preserving life. And I want to mention that I did say bacteria earlier. That's not a fungi. I threw that in for whatever reason. That was my
Yeah,
mistake.
I didn't catch that, I think. Okay,
Um,
bacteria are not fungi. Good to know.
and so, other than producing oxygen and taking in carbon dioxide, like humans do, what are the main roles of fungi in the environment?
Wait, pause.
Yes, it's the exact opposite. So plants.
Humans take in oxygen,
Oh,
release carbon dioxide.
that's what I meant.
So no, that's another great distinction between mushrooms and plants, right? So plants breathe in CO2 and they breathe out oxygen, and we breathe in oxygen and breathe out CO2. We're more closely related to mushrooms in that way than we are to plants because mushrooms also breathe in uh, oxygen and exhale CO2.
Ah, okay. Yeah, but I think what Troy was trying to ask was what are the roles of fungi in the environment beyond I guess producing carbon dioxide wouldn't really be considered a role, would it, in traditional sense? Because plants are what recycle oxygen back into the environment.
Yeah. So I mean that kind of speaks to the symbiosis of life in the mushroom kingdom. But also mushrooms are a large carbon store. They're like actually the largest carbon store on the planet. Mycelium underground that we walk on is a carbon store. But their main functions are decomposition. So they're our primary decomposers.
Right.
So without fungi, it would take insects and other things to break down. But the mushrooms for us, that's on Earth, that's our primary source of decomposition. So if it weren't for mushrooms, we would still be living amongst every dead tree that ever fell.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And speaking of fungi, we heard that there's this type of mushroom that can take control of like an insect's behavior. How does it do that?
Yeah, so I don't understand all like the stuff going on in the ant's brain, right? But it's the cordyceps mushroom. I think it's been renamed recently to the obeo cordyceps, but there's a few different. So that's the genus and the species beneath that. There's a bunch of species in that genus. But basically, when the ant, the one we most commonly know about is the one that there's ones for cicadas and grasshoppers and stuff like that, but the one we're talking about. When an ant comes in contact with the mycelium kind of takes over the ant. So it starts colonizing the ant's body. And the mycelium gets into the ant's brain and it's controlling the ant at that point. It sends signals to tell the ant to climb up into, you know, an area above where other ants beneath it are walking and looking for food or over their home. And that's when it'll cause the ant to clamp down on the tree branch. And then the mushroom the little fruiting body will grow out of its head and sporulate and put spores on the other ants and then they get infected. So there's even some colonies of ants that can identify when another ant's been infected, and then two little soldier ants will take it out far away from the nest and kill
Oh,
it to
Right.
keep that infection from harming the hive.
Okay, that is really interesting. Wow, answer hardcore. Speaking to the more medical side of things, can fungi help fight, or has it been demonstrated to help fight serious illnesses like cancer or autoimmune diseases?
Yeah, so the one you're probably most familiar with is penicillin, and that
Right.
was first discovered on a piece of bread. I think the variety or the species of penicillin that's now used medically was actually found on an orange. So I think it was originally discovered on a piece of bread, but then years later, a more powerful strain was found on it was either an orange or grapefruit somewhere in California. But there are studies that show that turkey tail mushrooms and chaga mushrooms have anti-tumor and anti-cancer properties.
Right.
There's been several studies on the turkey tail mushroom for supplementing the care of folks that are going through chemotherapy treatment. So it actually supplementing your diet with turkey tail mushrooms has been shown to extend the life of those that are undergoing cancer treatments by a good margin, 5 to 10 years.
It's interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
And how have fungi been helpful in a broader scientific context, like to create novel therapies or in terms of scientific research?
Okay, so there's another the kind of cool phenomenon about mushrooms is they don't have stomachs like we do, so they don't eat their food and then digest it. They have to digest their food externally and then absorb it. So uh, as you can imagine, that's a risky proposition for any organism to like just suck in things from all around.
Yeah.
So they create novel compounds to kill off things that could harm them. So and those are called metabolites, and it's just a liquid that the mushrooms would create depending on what they're running into. So like they're competing for a resource against something that could actually like take over and kill the mushroom mycelium. They can create these novel compounds to basically undergo some type of chemical warfare against the thing that they're coming into contact with. And that way they could kill it before they absorb it back into their body. But there's a study or some work was being done at I think the University of South Carolina with a mycologist where they were working with um, staph, the staph infection. So antibiotic resistant staph infection. If somebody would come in to the hospital in South Carolina, they could take a cheek swab or a throat swab from them and put it on a petri dish and then introduce a certain mushroom genetic onto that petri dish. And as that sample of DNA from the mushroom would spread out looking for sources of food, it would come in contact with this bacteria and it would start creating those novel compounds in order to kill off that bacteria. So what they would do then is they would take those metabolites, so that novel compound, and expand it out and create a very specific medicine for that patient, specific to their DNA and to the strain of staph that they were infected with.
Okay. Um, yeah, that's really all we had in terms of like medical questions. Was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of maybe like other diseases or other research contexts that's been helpful in?
Well, there's so many that I really don't know. And actually, the one book that I grabbed is the Fungal Pharmacy. And is it in the show? No, probably not. Anyway, I'll give you guys a picture of that if you want to put a thumbnail in. But
Okay.
I mean, it's just all the studies of all the fungi that are found in North America. And I
I
mean,
see.
turkey tail's in there, but so are the lion's manes mushrooms. They're in there for the brain benefits that they provide.
I see.
And just everything else is found in North America. This book has gotten basically all the white papers and all the research, and it's links to things, and it's a pretty good resource for that.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I have
Yeah.
for you.
That's all I had to.
All right. In that case, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, we really
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good meeting you guys.
You
You
too.
too. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.